The moment I saw the flashing notification on my phone while I was sitting alone in the quiet of our living room, my heart pounded like never before. I'd always trusted her, believed that every whispered excuse, every late-night meeting, was nothing more than the normal ebb and flow of a long marriage. But there, hidden among innocuous notifications, was a message from our neighbor, a message that would shatter every illusion I had held dear. I scrolled through photos and captions that revealed my wife's secret rendezvous with someone I had known for years, someone who lived next door. In that instant, a cold realization set in: she thought I'd never know. And now, as I began to piece together the truth, I knew my life would never be the same. That I still remember the early years of our life together. When I first met my wife, Lisa, I was captivated by her vibrant energy and warm smile. We had met at a small community event. She was the life of the party, effortlessly charming everyone around her, and I was drawn in by her kindness and enthusiasm. We quickly fell in love and built a comfortable life in a modest suburban neighborhood. Our home was filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the gentle routines that make up a life together. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes, spent lazy Sunday afternoons on our back porch, and took pride in our close-knit community. I never imagined that the person I trusted implicitly would one day hide secrets behind closed doors. For years, everything seemed perfect, or at least normal. But over time I started noticing subtle shifts. Lisa's phone, once an open book on our kitchen counter, became a guarded secret. She began taking calls in hushed tones, and when I'd ask casually where she was going, she'd offer vague, half-hearted answers. I told myself it was just a need for personal space, a harmless quirk of someone who valued privacy. Yet, as the months passed, a small voice inside me kept whispering that something wasn't right. I tried to ignore it, focusing on work and the routine life we had built, hoping that my doubts were merely the shadows cast by a busy mind. One day, after noticing that she was leaving the house with an unusual urgency, I decided to follow her. I had never been the confrontational type, but a gnawing suspicion urged me to trace her steps. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she walked briskly down our quiet street. I followed at a distance, my pulse quickening with each step. It wasn't long before I noticed her turning into a small cul-de-sac I'd never seen her frequent. There, nestled among rows of identical houses, was a modest building with a faded "The Oakwood Inn" sign. My stomach churned with foreboding as I pulled my car into a nearby lot and watched her disappear through its doors. For a long, agonizing hour, I sat in my car, heart pounding and mind racing with every worst-case scenario. Finally, I couldn't take it any longer. I stepped out and entered the building. The lobby was dimly lit and smelled faintly of stale coffee and old paper. I asked the receptionist casually if a Mrs. Lisa, last name, had checked in, and after a brief pause the clerk confirmed she had, just moments ago. My blood ran cold. I realized then that the suspicion I'd nurtured for so long was no mere fantasy. My wife was cheating. And the man she was with wasn't some mysterious stranger. He was our neighbor. I retreated to a quiet corner of the lobby, my mind reeling. I recalled memories of friendly waves and casual conversations with our neighbor, Amanda, who lived in the house next door. We'd exchanged smiles in the hallway and even had coffee together on lazy weekend mornings. I'd never thought much of it until now. The thought that Amanda, someone I'd once considered a friend, was entangled with Lisa in a secret affair sent a jagged spike of pain through me. I left the building without confronting her that moment. Instead, I drove home in a daze, every red light and stop sign marking another beat of my aching heart. For days I grappled with the devastating truth. I sifted through texts on Lisa's phone when she thought I wasn't looking, found coded messages that confirmed what I had witnessed that day. I pieced together a timeline: late nights, secret meetings at the Oakwood Inn, and even photos posted on a private social media account that hinted at an intimacy I had never been a part of. The evidence was irrefutable. I was torn between confronting her immediately and letting the truth simmer until I could plan my next move. I loved her once, deeply, and the betrayal cut like a knife. Yet, I knew that if I allowed anger to control me without thought, it would only destroy what little remained of our past. Instead, I decided to take a step back and let the full weight of the truth settle in. I spent long, sleepless nights documenting every detail, every screenshot, every image that confirmed my worst fears. I poured my sorrow into a journal, each word a desperate cry for the life that I thought we had built together. Finally, one fateful evening, I knew I could wait no longer. Lisa was home, sitting in the living room, her eyes red from crying as if she sensed something was terribly amiss. I took a deep breath and approached her, my voice trembling yet resolute. "Lisa, I know," I said quietly, the words heavy with both heartbreak and accusation. Her face crumpled, and for a long moment she said nothing. I showed her the evidence: photos, texts, timestamps, and watched as the truth broke through her defenses. She began to sob, mumbling apologies and excuses that rang hollow in the silence of our once shared sanctuary. Her tears, though heartbreaking, only confirmed what I already knew. The man I thought I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger living a double life right under my nose. The conversation that night was a maelstrom of accusations, regrets, and desperate pleas for forgiveness. I wanted to hear her say that it was a mistake, that she would end the affair, that we could somehow rebuild what was lost. Instead, all I heard were broken promises and the sound of her crying, a sound that echoed every lie I had ever been told. I told her that trust, once shattered, could never be fully restored, and that the path ahead would be one of painful separation. In the weeks that followed, I began the process of reclaiming my life. I consulted a divorce attorney and shared every piece of evidence I had meticulously gathered. The legal proceedings were as grueling as they were emotionally draining, forcing me to relive the betrayal in every court session, every meeting with my lawyer, every discussion with family and friends. The news of the affair spread slowly through our community. Whispers in the neighborhood, shock among our friends, and sorrow in the eyes of those who once admired our union. I wasn't interested in public spectacle. I just wanted closure, the chance to rebuild my shattered self-worth. I moved out of our home eventually, leaving behind the memories of a life that had crumbled under the weight of lies. I packed my belongings, taking with me my journal, a few cherished photos of happier times, and the resolve to never again allow deceit to define my future. Driving away, I felt a profound mix of grief and liberation, a bittersweet release that marked both an ending and a beginning. During this turbulent period, I leaned on the support of friends and family who, upon hearing my story, expressed both shock and admiration for my strength. They told me that confronting the truth, however painful, was the only way to move forward, that I deserved to live a life defined by honesty and respect. I began to attend therapy sessions, where I slowly started to untangle the complex web of emotions that betrayal had woven around me. I learned to acknowledge the pain without letting it consume me, to embrace my vulnerability as a source of strength rather than a weakness. Each session was a step toward understanding that my self-worth was not tied to someone else's dishonesty. That I also immersed myself in rebuilding the life I had once shared with Lisa. I redecorated my new apartment with bright, hopeful colors that contrasted sharply with the dark memories of the past. I started a new routine. Morning walks with my dog Pepper, evenings spent reading or painting, weekends filled with visits from supportive friends. Slowly, the wounds began to heal, though they would always be a part of me, a reminder of the pain I had endured. I found solace in writing, channeling my heartbreak into stories and poems that helped me process the betrayal and reclaim my identity. One particularly reflective evening, as I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I realized that despite the deep scars, I had emerged stronger. The betrayal had forced me to confront a harsh reality, but in doing so, it had also revealed my inner resilience. I was no longer the person who had once clung to illusions of perfect love. I had learned to trust my intuition, to demand honesty, and to build a future on my own terms. That painful truth, of a wife who had chosen a secret life over transparency, had become a catalyst for transformation. Over time, I started dating again, albeit with caution. I met someone, a kind, gentle soul who valued transparency and communication above all else. Our first date was simple, a quiet dinner at a small cafe where we talked about our past, our hopes, and our shared belief in honesty. It was tentative at first, each word measured, each gesture a cautious step toward rebuilding trust in another person. But as the weeks passed, I began to open up more, to laugh again, to allow the possibility of new love into my life. It wasn't a rush. I had learned that healing takes time, that every scar is a reminder of what you've survived and a symbol of your strength. Every so often, I still encounter moments that trigger the old pain. A familiar scent, a casual remark in a restaurant, or the sound of a laughing couple that reminds me of what I lost. In those moments, I allow myself to feel the sorrow, to acknowledge the betrayal, and then, slowly, I let the memory fade into a background hum, a part of my past but not my present. I've learned that while betrayal can break you, it can also set you free, forcing you to redefine who you are and what you deserve. Reflecting on my journey, I see that the moment I discovered my wife's secret, the hidden messages, the clandestine meetings, the undeniable evidence, was a turning point in my life. It shattered the illusion of a perfect marriage and forced me to confront a painful truth, that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. But it also ignited a determination within me to reclaim my self-worth, to assert that I would no longer be defined by someone else's deceit. I transformed that bitter experience into a stepping stone toward a future where I am in control, A future where I build my own happiness, unburdened by the lies of the past, that I learned to let go of the remnants of our shared dreams and to embrace the possibility of a new beginning. The process was not linear. There were days of intense sorrow, nights when the weight of betrayal threatened to crush me. But I also discovered moments of unexpected joy. A smile from a friend, a compliment from a stranger, the serene beauty of a sunrise that reminded me each day was a fresh start. I realized that the end of one chapter, however painful, was also the beginning of another. I had been forced to leave behind a life built on false promises, and in doing so, I found the strength to create a new narrative, one that was honest, resilient, and entirely my own. Looking back now, I see the scars not as symbols of defeat, but as emblems of survival. Each painful memory, every tear shed, is a testament to the journey I undertook, from the moment I discovered the truth, to the painful confrontation, to the slow, arduous process of healing and rebuilding. I no longer allow the betrayal to define me. Instead, I use it as a reminder that I have the power to rise above even the deepest wounds. Today, as I sit in the quiet of my new home, with Pepper sleeping soundly at my feet and a soft light spilling through the windows, I feel a sense of peace that I never thought possible. I know that the pain of that fateful day will always be a part of me, but it is no longer a chain that binds me to a life of regret. I have reclaimed my dignity, my independence, and my future. I have learned that while love can sometimes be fraught with deception, the truth, however painful, is the only foundation upon which a genuine life can be built. That I stand here now, with the painful memories of betrayal still etched in my heart, yet with a renewed sense of hope and self-respect. I have chosen to move forward, not as a victim of lies, but as a survivor who has transformed heartbreak into the strength to live authentically. My journey taught me that sometimes the most devastating truths lead to the most liberating transformations. And while I will always carry the scars of that betrayal, they now serve as a reminder of my resilience. A beacon of light guiding me toward a future where honesty, respect, and self-worth reign supreme. That is my story. The day I followed a red dot on a tracking app, the night I discovered my wife's hidden world, the painful confrontation that shattered my illusions, and the long, winding journey of healing that followed. It is a story of heartbreak and betrayal, yes, but also one of rebirth and renewal. A story that reminds me every day that I am stronger than the lies that once threatened to destroy me.